stakeholders, both of them because of my husband's employment.
Thank you. Are there any others? Okay, and I have one to disclose as well. Check number 333043 is payable to myself. Thank you. Members of Council, I have one deputation this evening. I'd like to invite Justin DeCienzo to come forward, please. Several weeks ago, Councillor Peter Angel brought to my attention the story of young Justin DeCienzo, who had been featured in our local newspaper for his abilities with a golf club, and suggested that we bring him to Council to congratulate him on his achievements. Justin began golfing when he was 6, and already, of course, this grade 4 student at St. Vincent de Paul is a member of the Canadian Junior Golf Association Golf Tour and the U.S. Kids Golf Tour. At just 10 years of age, Justin has accomplished what so many seasoned golfers would give their right arm for: a hole-in-one, right? And an invitation to a PGA tournament. With natural ability, the encouragement of his family, the services of a golf pro to teach and guide him, and on the strength of his performance in 6 qualifying tournaments, Justin qualified to attend the PGA Golf Club Invitational Tournament in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And Justin, on behalf of the members of Council, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you on your exceptional achievements and wish you the very best, and of course, with your future golf success and also your own personal development and growth. But we have this little presentation to make to you, and the certificate reads, "Official recognition and congratulations are extended by the City of Niagara Falls to Justin DeCienzo for your extraordinary golfing talents and for qualifying to compete in the PGA Golf Club Invitational in Port St. Lucie, Florida," signed by myself and members of Council. Congratulations, Justin. You want to say anything?
Thank you.
What's your handicap?
6 under par.
6.
Yeah, so it's
Pretty good. Tell us about golfing. Is it a lot of fun?
yeah, I enjoy it a lot. It's nice to be outside and let the sun shine on there.
And how many rounds of golf did you get in this last year?
About 18 and yeah, or more maybe.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Okay.
Thank you. It's impressive. Mr. Clerk, could you introduce the first or the next item on the agenda, please?
A public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city zoning bylaw to permit cottage rental dwellings at 4901 and 4907 Ontario Avenue. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, November 13, 2009, and by posting a sign on the properties in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign and sheets outside the council chamber.
This time I'd like to ask the Director of Planning to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment. Mr. Hurlovich.
All right, excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. This first application involves the 2 houses on the screen in front of you, the white sided house and the red brick house next to it. They're 2 separate properties on Ontario Street. The location of which is between Ellis Avenue and Simcoe Street. The property is surrounded by other residential properties to the north, west, and south, by a small park and the Olympic Torch Legacy Trail to the east. There are 2 properties, as I mentioned, both currently occupied by single detached dwellings, the location of which is shown on the screen. The applicant is requesting that the 2 houses be recognized as cottage rental dwellings Those are dwellings that are rented to tourists for temporary accommodation up to 28 days. The properties are zoned residential, single-family, and two-family, or our R2 zone, which does not typically permit this type of use. The zoning is requested to add this as a specific use to these two properties. There was a neighborhood open house held on these properties. Concerns from the residents in the area who attended had to do with how the city would regulate the size of the groups that would use the cottage rental units, and that there be adequate parking provided. In reviewing the application, planning staff found that the subject property are within the urban boundary area and do not affect provincial interests. The properties are designated residential in the official plan. The official plan does provide for small-scale tourist accommodations such as bed and breakfast through the zoning, and that the establishment of such accommodations shall be carefully regulated by their location, size, traffic generation, so as to minimize the potential impacts on adjacent properties. In reviewing this property, both these properties, we found that the location is appropriate because it's immediately adjacent to an area zoned for bed and breakfast. That's the River Road neighborhood between the Legacy Trail and the Niagara River. The cottage rental dwellings are quite similar to the kind of accommodation typically found as a bed and breakfast. The residential character of the area will not be changing, as there are no changes to the dwellings, and that the cottage rental dwellings are not expected to generate more traffic than a typical single detached dwelling, and that it would be rented to a separate group of travelers. The cottage rental dwellings under the zoning were found that they would be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Both units are 3 bedrooms each. The Ontario Building Code regulates the occupancy of the number of people in the that can occupy the bedrooms, which is limited to 2, which means a total occupancy of 6 persons per cottage unit. As well, the bylaw standards would be met, requires that there be 1 parking space, and the parking space at 4907 Ontario Avenue at the time this report was prepared would have to be enlarged. I understand that driveway has now been enlarged to provide the adequate length that would be required to meet the zoning. This change would accommodate the parking demand for the cottage and would alleviate the concerns that were expressed by the residents in the area that there would be traffic spilling off into the surrounding area. As well, the bylaw amendment can be supported because it does comply with the official plan. The residential character of each dwelling will not be changing. The buildings will provide only 3 bedrooms for occupancy, and the Ontario Building Code will regulate the number of people. Therefore, we do not anticipate any adverse impacts on the adjacent properties. Staff is therefore recommending that Council approve the zoning amendment application and permit the existing dwellings to be used as cottage rental dwellings. Those are the highlights.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hurlovich. And members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral that it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 34, subsection 19 of the Planning Act. At this time, Council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. Is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment? For the third time, is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak? At this time, then, Council will hear from the applicant or his representative. Would you like to come forward, please? Good evening. For the record, would you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Paul Nolan.
Great. Thank you. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Basically, my idea is to convert the homes right now into the houses right now into cottage rental dwellings, and that's basically it, really. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions by members of Council? Yes, Councillor Maves?
Yes, through you to Mr. Nolan, Your Worship. I'm just, we have a letter from a Mr. Kapoor who has some concerns. Are these being addressed? Are you aware of these concerns that he has?
Yeah, we talked about it on Saturday, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Hurlovich, you're aware of the letter?
I saw the letter today in Council's package. It doesn't really affect the land use. It is a boundary dispute. It has to do with the fence is slightly onto Mr. Kapoor's property.
So we wouldn't be addressing any of those. That would be Mr. Kapoor and
Not
Mr.
through
Nolan.
zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nolan.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Thanks a lot.
At this time, then, the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. The pleasure of council. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Ioannoni. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, could you introduce the next item on the agenda, please? Thank you.
A public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city's zoning bylaw to permit a proposed semi-detached dwelling at the former Ethel Street Road allowance. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, November 13, 2009, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside the council chamber.
Once again, I'm going to ask the Director of Planning to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. The property in question is a vacant parcel that's on the screen in front of you. It's on the west side of Montrose Road, and it's a former Ethel Street road allowance. The property's pictured here. It's immediately north of Charnwood Avenue, slightly north of Delta Drive on the opposite side. The Montrose Road has a mix of residential uses, single-family, some single-family with business. There are also some apartment buildings located along Montrose Road. In other words, a mix of residential uses. The proposal is to use the property and erect a semi-detached dwelling. They would be attached with the garage in the middle. This is a requirement of the region because they want to minimize the number of driveways onto Montrose Road, which is a regional road. Therefore, there would be a shared driveway or abutting driveways for each of the units to be constructed if this zoning goes through. I mentioned the property is the former Ethel Street road allowance. It was recently sold by the city. The land is currently zoned R1D. It's a single-family residential zone, which permits only a detached dwelling. It's similar to the zoning that exists elsewhere along Montrose Road. The applicant has requested that the property be zoned R2, residential single-family and two-family. In reviewing this application, staff found that the application would comply with the provincial direction for intensification within our built boundaries. The official plan designates the lands as residential. The residential designation does permit a variety of housing types, including single and semi-detached dwellings. Semi-detached dwellings are considered to be the similar density, mass, appearance, setbacks, and other characteristics of the dwellings in the neighborhood. The zoning of the subject property is R1D, as I mentioned. It reflects the use and size of the properties on the adjacent properties. The R2 zone would permit the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. The difference between this property and some of the adjacent properties is because it's a former road allowance, it's 5 meters or 16 feet wider than the typical lot found on Montrose Road, so it's a former 66-foot wide road allowance, and therefore it meets the R2 regulations for semi-detached dwelling. I mentioned already the region wants one driveway access point onto Montrose Road. The site plan that's been submitted shows that driveway servicing both units. The staff there has concluded that the requested construction of a semi-detached dwelling does meet the official plan requirements. The bylaw R2 standards of the city standard zoning could be met, and we feel that the dwelling is compatible with the surrounding land uses, which are a mix, as I said, of single, semi-detached, and apartment units. Therefore, staff is recommending that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment application to change the zoning of the subject lands to permit the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. Those are the highlights.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurlowich. And once again, members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral that it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 34, subsection 19 of the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. Okay. Is there anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? For the third time, is there anyone present who would like to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment? Okay. At this time, then, council will hear from the applicant or a representative. Would you like to come forward, please? And for the record, would you identify yourself, please?
Violet Kekic, owner.
And welcome. Thank you. Do you have any comments you'd like to make before council?
Nope, just answer any question if it's any.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions by members of council? No? Yes, not. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Kekic. We appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, then, members of council, the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. The pleasure of council. Moved by Councillor Diodati, second by Councillor Thompson. Any comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Members of council, I have a few comments this evening. I'm pleased to highlight some recent notable events that have taken place in our community. This past weekend was particularly exciting for the Trails and Bikeway Committee as the dedication of the first section of the Olympic Torch Run Legacy Trail, a permanent landmark and trail honoring the historic relay of the Olympic Torch through Niagara Falls, took place on Saturday morning. The remaining section will be completed in the spring of 2010. And special thanks go to the Trail and Bikeways Committee, and in particular Lisa Wilson, chairperson of the committee, for their vision to promote and develop recreational trails and bikeway routes throughout the city of Niagara Falls. And also to Jeff Clayton, the landscape architect with the city of Niagara Falls, for designing this trail and the adjoining parkette. This weekend, the Candlelight Stroll took place on Saturday evening, hosted by the Downtown BIA. And thank you to the staff and volunteers of the Downtown BIA for carrying on with this exciting and enjoyable winter family tradition. This weekend also saw the official opening of the Winter Festival of Lights Rink by the Brink, an attraction sure to become a reality and a great tradition for residents and visitors alike. 1 year ago today, I was pleased to bring you the good news that the Niagara Falls had been selected as a community celebration community, I should say, along the Olympic Torch Relay Route for the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. And as you know, we will be hosting the Torch and celebrations in conjunction with the Torch Relay Organizing Committee on December 20th and 21st, 2009. So this Sunday, December 20th, at precisely 6 p.m., the Olympic Torch will begin its journey through Niagara Falls at the corner of Bridge Street and Victoria Avenue, traveling down Queen Street, past City Hall to River Road, and then throughout the city, as it makes its way to the celebration site at the Table Rock parking lot across from the Horseshoe Falls. The timing of the actual celebration in the park has been changed slightly, as it will now begin at this location at 5:30 p.m. in anticipation of the 7 p.m. arrival of the Olympic Flame, and being carried on the last leg of its journey through Niagara Falls by our own Olympic winner, Gord Singleton. The Torch Relay is an exciting way to get residents in Niagara involved in a special event, whether at the celebration site in the park or along the relay route through Niagara Falls. We have had great response from the community, with over 50 organized groups prepared to light the way and cheer on our torchbearers. Among those included in this list are service organizations, veteran associations, soccer clubs, dance studios, skating clubs, cribbage leagues, curling clubs, dart leagues, track clubs, scouts, families, churches, schools, fire services, casino associates, the Boys and Girls Club, Niagara Concerts, and so many more. We have some truly outstanding and inspirational entertainment planned as well to celebrate our day as an Olympic city. We look forward to be welcoming Canada to the world and Niagara Falls as the Olympic flame lights up the streets of Niagara and Queen Victoria Park. A very special thank goes out to Dale Morton, who has been coordinating this event along with several other City Hall personnel and volunteers and community liaisons. For more information, please go to our city website at www.niagarafalls.ca. I hope you all plan to attend this once-in-a-lifetime event. And in closing, I'd like to offer each of you best wishes for a happy and healthy holiday. I hope everyone will have the opportunity in the coming weeks to enjoy a rewarding, safe holiday season with family and friends. And there is such potential for greatness in Niagara Falls in the coming months and years, and I look forward to the challenges of 2010 with optimism that with hard work and commitment we will serve our community to the best of our abilities. And best wishes, everyone, for a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thank you. Move on to communications.
Excuse
We
me.
have, yes, Councillor Fisher.
I'd also like to add to that on December the 21st at 8:15 in the morning in Chippewa, the Olympic torch will go through from Macklem Street, which is the filtration plant, across Whiteman Bridge, Cummington Square, turn west on Main Street, continue down to Sodom Road, and up to the arena. We hope everyone comes out that morning to enjoy, and it's a one-time for all of us, and Chippewa's on the map. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, the bridge, Rainbow Bridge, will be the host of the Olympic Flame in the morning at 7:30. There will be a small ceremony proceeding from the Rainbow Bridge, from the midpoint, I believe, on towards the south towards Chippewa. So if anybody misses it on the 20th, they can certainly join in the celebration on the 21st, the Monday morning. Thank you. Communications and comments from the city clerk. We have two items. The additional item being number 2 being Taps Brewery request for closure of a right-of-way. So the first item is FX Work Incorporated request permission to do the New Year's Eve fireworks display from the top of the Skyline Tower. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, you heard the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And the second item, Mr. Clerk, is anything further?
No, Your Worship, as you indicated, Taps Brewery has requested a closure of the city-owned right-of-way near their property. This is to accommodate an ice skating rink for the winter, and staff's recommending approval of council subject to proper insurance and passing of a bylaw that's listed later on your agenda to close the right-of-way to the public.
Motion by Councillor Diodati, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Once again, Council heard the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any additional items, Mr. Clerk? No, Your Worship. Okay, at this time, we're going to have a brief budget presentation by our CAO. Mr. Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will try to be brief with you tonight. And what we're going to leave with you at the end of the night is your large budget binders, so Merry Christmas. You can take those with you. As many of you know, we started this process back in September, and I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update to Council as to where we've come since that date. We held a series of public meetings, which, although they weren't very well attended, we did get some good information out of those sessions. We also carried out online surveys and telephone interviews to garner more information. And it was interesting because some of the priorities that came out of those sessions and the public consultation that we did fit very nicely in with Council's priorities that they've set for themselves over this term of Council. And some of the things that we were hearing is people really are looking for priorities such as improving the condition of our roads, looking at increased in maintaining snow removal services, fire services, water and sewer infrastructure, and improved customer service. Those were really some of the things that people were looking at for priorities. So as we went through and started to develop the budget, we wanted to make sure that our priorities fell in line with what Council's priorities were and with what the public priorities were. Some of the things that we looked at is we reported to Council with a series of 8 guidelines for the preparation of the budget, and that included holding the line on spending from last year. We did report to Council that there was a number of commitments, especially in the contractual area, that we were obliged to follow, and that's really driven what our increases in spending are so far that in your draft budget. What we've done as a staff, we've had all the divisional directors prepare their budget. They've gone through those budgets with the executive directors. There was another series of meetings that occurred with myself, the executive directors, and our treasurer to try to review those numbers further. We were able to make a number of cuts that we were able to reduce certain areas. The problem that we're still faced with even though we have our spending fairly much in line, I think, in accordance with Council's direction was, our spending that you're going to see in your budget books tonight as a starting point, our overall expenditures are up about 1.6%. That's probably just slightly over the rate of inflation. We think that's a pretty good starting point for Council as we go into these budget deliberations. But we still have a lot of work to do. Council will recall we were using the number of around $6 million in terms of a revenue and expenditure gap. With some of our budget process now, that number is probably still sitting at around just slightly around the $4 million mark. What we're suggesting as a staff, that instead of getting into any greater detail tonight, we're going to be back to you at our first budget meeting in January, which will be the 25th of January. And what we're hoping to do is come back with a strategy for you, presenting you with some options on how to deal with this the 2010 budget. Part of that strategy will include some options for you to deal with. What we're recommending as well is that one of the first things we'd really like to suggest to Council that we deal with is dealing immediately with our permissive grants and trying to get those out of the way as a first step. So again, we'll be coming to you with a report. We're certainly going to be making recommendations to you. We feel that that's a good starting point to set the tone for the rest of the budget. So what I'd like to recommend to Council is that we start first off with a report on the permissive grants, and then we'll proceed into our overall budget discussions. But we will have detailed options and sort of a discussion paper for you to give you some suggestions on how we feel we can manage the report, with the budget for the upcoming year. What we suggest is we'll give you the budget binders tonight. There's a lot of detail in there. You can peruse it at your leisure. Wouldn't suggest, if there's certain things that are near and dear to your heart, you might want to go through those pages, but we're not really asking you at this point to get into the detail. We'd like to have this higher level discussion with you on the 25th, and then we can get into where we're going from there. So, Mr. Mayor, I really don't want to get into any further detail tonight, but we're going to be working over the next few weeks to bring that report back to you on the 25th, and I'm happy to answer any questions that Council may have at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Todd. Any questions for our CAO? Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll wait to hear more so on the 25th of January. Move on to, yes, Councillor Mays.
Just under the report section, I want to reaffirm my conflict in the Corporate Services Committee report under the insurance section.
Okay, so noted. This time I'm going to ask for ratification of Community Services Committee actions. I'll call on the Chair, Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following items are to be ratified from December 14th, 2009 meeting of the Community Services Committee. Under minutes, that the minutes of November 30th be adopted and as recorded. Under reports, MW 2009-86, Niagara Falls Armory. One, that the Niagara Falls Historical Museum, former Lundy's Lane Historical Museum, be permitted to operate temporarily from the Niagara Falls Armory during the construction phase of the museum expansion project from January 10th to the end of the construction phase of the project, and that the city enter into a lease with the Niagara Falls Military Museum. Under PRC 2009-36, Revised Arena Payment and Cancellation Policy, that the Council approve the Revised Arena Payment and Cancellation Policy, and under 2, that the Revised Arena Payment and Cancellation Policy be effective to January 1st, 2010. Under PRC 2009-35, Gale Center Arena Construction Update, that the Gale Center Arena Construction Update report be received for information purposes. Under BDD 2009-05, to the 2010 Pan American Games, that Council authorize the Mayor and Clerk to sign the 2015 Pan Am Games Joinder Agreement. Under TS 2009-52, Vehicle Replacement Niagara Chairavan, that Council pre-approved the 2010 purchase of a Niagara Chairavan vehicle with the lowest bidder, Overland Custom Coach, and that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to enter into agreement to the purchase. Under PD 2009-99, that the Council approve the 3 applications for commercial building and facade improvement grants subject to considering the properties as different parcels and satisfying the downtown CIP program requirements. Under PD 101, that the commercial building and facade improvement grant application for 4529 to 4531 Queen Street be adopted, subject to the owner satisfying the program requirements, and that the mayor and city council be authorized to execute the grant agreement, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Ioannoni, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Any comments or questions by members of council? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. This time I'm going to call on ratification of Corporate Services Committee actions, and I'm going to request that Councillor Pietrangelo, as the chair, present
Thank you, Your Worship. Following items that will be ratified from tonight's meeting. First, that the minutes of the November 30th, 2009 meeting be adopted as recorded. Under reports, we had AODA training for councillors. Council received a presentation from Brian Kahn on the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Customer Service Standard. Upon completion of the presentation, the Council acknowledged reading and understanding the City's Accessible Customer Service Training Brochure. Report F 2009-59 dealing with the 2010 debenture issue. It was moved that Council request the Region of Niagara issue long-term financing for the City through Infrastructure Ontario by issuing debentures totaling $12 million. The next report, F 2009-61, dealing with the approval of interim 2010 spending limits. It was recommended and approved that in the absence of an adopted 2010 general purposes budget, City Council approves the following. First, City divisions be allowed to incur costs to a level of 50% of the division's expenditure budget of the prior year. Second, new capital expenditures which are deemed essential by a division be approved by City Council prior to purchase. And lastly, that this policy be communicated to all commissions, boards, and agencies, and that the City's contributions to each stakeholder group be in accordance with the attached schedule. Next report, CPS 2009-12, dealt with the General Insurance Program for 2010. It was recommended and approved that Council authorize staff to designate Frank Cowan Company Limited as the preferred proponent for the General Insurance Program for the City and the Library, and that staff negotiate with the preferred proponent to conclude the terms of a contract at an upset limit of $1,387,158 plus applicable taxes. Also, that the proposed 2010 General Insurance Program be subject to annual renewal based on satisfactory performance and Council approval, and lastly, that staff investigate alternative insurance programs. Next report was CPS 2009-13, dealing with the Niagara Falls Humane Society. It was adopted that the City provide up to $179,000 to the Niagara Falls Humane Society as a 5-year forgivable mortgage for the financing of completed building improvements at the Niagara Falls Humane Society Animal Shelter. Under new business, there was 2 points, Your Worship. One, that staff ensure lighting of Cummington Square in time for the Olympic Torch Run, which is on December 21st, and that staff develop guidelines for voting, proxies, and standardized budgets for the City's business improvement areas. And I would so move the minutes.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, you've heard the question. Anything further? Any discussions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. This time I'm going to call on the clerk for ratification of in-camera recommendations.
One item, Your Worship, that the non-union bylaw be revised in order to amend the current 2-week vacation carryover limit for salary grades 15 to 21 only, up to a maximum annual limit equal to an individual's annual vacation entitlement. Approval of this extension would be subject to the conditions outlined in Report HR 2009-08.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Picario, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Once again, you heard the question. Any comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Move on to the consent agenda. Pleasure of council. Councillor Carrio.
Move the consent agenda.
Moved in whole. Seconded by Councillor Fisher. Okay. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. Just for a good news item, CAO 2009-02, the administration of the Bob Gale Recreation Fund. I sit on that committee appointed by Council, and we have allocated 2 seasons of funds to those out there who applied and needed the monies, and it's working great, and it's a wonderful committee to be on. So I just wanted to give Council a brief update on that.
Excuse me, you said 2 seasons of funds or fund?
Of funds. What happens is they apply for seasons. So they applied for the winter season, and we've done the applications for the spring season. So, and then we will look at applications for summer sports, rec and culture, that type of thing. And it's working so smoothly, and it's a great group of people to work with. So I thank Council for putting me on there, and I just want to tell you, it's working.
Okay. Is there a possibility that would become public information, or is it not meant to be public?
It is public information. We are already a registered charity.
Yeah. Yes, so you might come back with a report possibly?
Sure.
Okay, good, thank you. Alrighty, at this time, I'd like to have a motion to introduce the bylaws. Bylaws be given a first reading, moved by Councillor Peter. I'm sorry. Additional bylaw first? Yes. Clerk?
Your Worship, there's actually, being the end of the year, often we're scrambling to get all pertinent bylaws on the agenda, so there's actually 3 additional bylaws this evening. One is to authorize the mayor and CAO to execute Community Adjustment Fund agreement. This one's in association with the funding we received on the Oakwood Drive sewer project and other associated works. Second bylaw is amending our bylaw enforcement officers. There's a new commissioner, I believe, coming on early in the new year before our next council meeting, so we had to bring that forward. And the third bylaw is related to the Taps Brewery item we spoke of earlier, which is temporarily removing the public's right of passage over the highway. So those will be numbered sequentially after your existing bylaws.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a mover with Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, Council's heard the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried.
So bylaws 2009-193 to 2009-201 read a first time.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to give the bylaws a second and third reading? Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo again and seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, you've heard the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Bylaws 2009-193 to 2009-201 read a second and third time and passed.
Thank you. Any new business this evening? Councillor Diodati.
Worship, I would ask that we could direct staff to look into, and I've already started discussions with them, outdoor areas, Your Worship, of big box stores. They've got these outdoor areas. They're fenced, they're lighted, they're inventoried, they're insured, they're staffed. They're clearly regular retail areas for customers and storage and the staff. And they don't pay the same type property taxes as they would for the building. Now, not that we would expect they would pay the same as a building, nor would we expect they pay the same as the parking lot. And, Your Worship, it doesn't seem to me to be a situation that's advantageous for them to want to fully enclose those areas when they can avoid having to pay the extra property taxes. And I had discussed this with staff, and they suggested we would bring this forward, and staff could come back with a report. I know some of it is mandated from the province, but possibly we could look into this little bit of a loophole that some corporations avoid paying their fair share, Your Worship. So I would so move that staff report back on this.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Diodati, seconded by Councillor Peter Angelo. Staff come back with a report. Any further comments or questions to that matter? Having seen none, all those in favor of the motion? Thank you. The motion is carried. Councillor Peter Angelo.
Your Worship, I do have 2 quick items. 2 weeks ago, myself and Councillor Diodati had asked Councillor Carrio some questions about the Parks Commission and the Maid of the Mist lease. Since then, there was an article in the Niagara Falls Review that talked about the naming rights to the Maid of the Mist. And just this week, our CAO, Ken Todd, had emailed all of council a letter from the Maid of the Mist Steamboat Company's solicitor saying that they do in fact have the rights to the name. Your Worship, I'm just going to read from the actual agreement between the Parks Commission and the Maid of the Mist Steamboat Company, where it says one of the tenants' acknowledgments is that it does not claim any interest or rights in the words Maid of the Mist, except in its company name and the name of its motor vessels, and NPC is free to use Maid of the Mist in identification of its structures, retail, or promotional material. Now, I'm not a lawyer, Your Worship. I wouldn't suggest that I understand everything that this says, but it does say that they do not claim any right or any interest in the words Maid of the Mist. And I guess what I'm wondering, Your Worship, is to sort of clear this up, would it be possible, through you to Councillor Carrio, to have the Niagara Parks Commission comment on who actually owns the rights to the name Maid of the Mist?
Councillor Carrio.
Your Worship, I did ask the question at the meeting, at a Parks Commission meeting, and it's of their opinion that the Maid of the Mist name is owned by Maid of the Mist Steamboat Company, and for their use and their sole use only. And that's basically what the letter from the solicitor from the Maid of the Mist had said, and I think that the feeling at the Parks Commission is the same, that the name is owned by the Maid of the Mist.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have a license to use it. The Parks Commission has a
souvenirs and things like that.
to sell T-shirts and whatever using the Maid of the Mist name. That's my understanding. That's their name and their name only.
Thank you, Councillor.
And I guess just to follow that up, should the Maid of the Mist Steamboat Company not be successful in, I guess, obtaining the rights to this new lease that's going out, then whoever comes in to operate the boats would never be able to call the Maid of the Mist again?
Councillor Carrion?
That would be my assumption, that the new people coming in would call the boat ride whatever. I'm not sure if this is the right time now, whether I should thank council for putting me on that committee.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Your Worship, I was hoping perhaps, and I do appreciate Councillor Carrio's opinion. He gives us a lot of good feedback, but I'm wondering actually if we couldn't actually ask someone from the Parks Commission to clarify who owns the name. I'd like to hear from the Parks Commission, to be honest with you.
Well, we've actually heard from their solicitor. We've got an opinion already. Well, actually, we've heard from the maids. I'm not sure if the NPC would put themselves in that position. Councillor Carrier, would you care to venture?
They're going to tell you just what I just told you, but if there's a specific way you'd like it given to you, I will ask again, but I think that you're going to get the opinion that I just gave you. But I will...
Perhaps when you have someone from the Parks Commission, then come here to speak to us?
But he's not there anymore. So... I could ask someone else. If you'd like to hear it from someone else, I'd be glad to do that.
Perhaps when someone from the Parks Commission then comes here to answer some questions? Yeah, because...
the only problem is right now is it might be difficult right now because of the time of year. With the resignation of the chairman, things are in a little bit of a, not an upheaval, but they're a little bit... I don't know what the word is, but I think that we can get the answer from someone if you specify who would you like to hear it from. I mean, you want to hear it from a staff member, the acting chairman. I'm not sure who you'd like to hear it from.
I would think whoever the Niagara Parks Commission solicitor would be good enough for me, Your Worship.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I do have another item, Your Worship. A couple of weeks ago, right after our council meeting, in the paper, on the front page was the Optimist Club, and as everyone knows now, the Optimist Club is up for sale. There's been a couple of letters to the editor since then stating that the city has sort of dropped the ball in the sense that, you know, we haven't gone to the Optimist Club, we haven't done anything, and I'm not even sure whether or not all the council is aware, but probably about a year and a half ago, Your Worship, our senior staff did go to the Optimist Club and did try to negotiate something with them.
Yes.
And I know that yourself and our CAO, Mr. Todd, have a meeting coming up this week, again with the Optimist Club. I'm wondering if you'd like to enlighten council or the public a little bit, perhaps, about what you're going to be discussing, or even what was discussed in the past, so that the public knows that we've already gone to them and tried, Your Worship.
Yes. Councillor, I appreciate that. Of course, we had a full report given to council by our former CAO of some discussions that took place with him and others, myself included, with the administration and some of the board members. Since that time, things have transpired at the Optimist, and I don't want to venture as to a reason as to why they want to sell, but I think it really has to do with their aging membership and the fact that some members are really totally committed to doing that work all the time and working on the facility, but they're always just a bit short with regard to their budgets in respect to that, and they were trying to alleviate themselves from the burden of the building, the maintenance. They were seeking to relocate the facility to a smaller location. They did have an offer, I believe, at one point that was accepted, and that offer failed. And at this point, we had asked, after the offer had died, essentially, we'd asked if they would like to come back and have some more dialogue with us. And so our CAO and myself will be meeting with them, and we hope to come back to council. As you know, we did have a full report by our former CAO before any offer was negotiated in the last couple of years. We knew that they were struggling, and certainly as we understand the importance and the significance of that location, and it's a matter of the will of their club and what they wanted to do. But I think there were some options for the club at the time to consider, and they did go out and seek an offer at that point, which they were negotiating. So that's what I have to say. But Mr. Todd, do you have any further you'd like to add to that?
No, Mr. Mayor, other than the fact that the options that were explored before are the kind of approach we'll be taking in our meeting. We'll explore every opportunity with them. As you know, there's different planning processes that will have to be followed. So hopefully our discussions will be fruitful, and we'll be able to report back probably at our January 25th meeting on the progress of that.
Okay, so we'll come back to you. Yes, Councillor?
Yeah, Your Worship, and I know that the priority of the city is to maintain the property that the Optimist Club sits on right now as green space. I mean, that goes without saying. I'm wondering if at some point in the future, perhaps the details of, the city's meeting could be outlined for the public so that they understand that we tried.
Yeah, if we can make that available, we would. We don't know what the club is thinking at this point. Mr. Todd, you may have some comments on that.
Mr. Mayor, when we report back on the 25th of January, we could include some of that detail in the report for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business? Move to adjourn by Councillor Ioannoni, second by Councillor Maves. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone.